My sister laughed like she'd already won. Not politely. Not awkwardly. She laughed the way people do when they think the conversation is over. When they believe nothing you say could possibly change the outcome. 10%, she repeated, eyebrows raised. That's it. The room went quiet. Not because anyone felt uncomfortable, but because they were waiting to see how I'd react. I didn't. I just smiled. They didn't know what I had already done. We were sitting in our parents' dining room, the same heavy wooden table that had hosted decades of arguments disguised as concern. Coffee cups, untouched pastries, papers spread out between us like props in a play that always ended the same way. My sister leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, confidence spilling out of her like it always had. So let me get this straight, she said. You passed on a salary for 10%. She shook her head, still smiling. That's adorable. Someone cleared their throat. No one defended me. They never did. My sister had always understood numbers the way people understand headlines. Big. Loud. Immediate. She chased titles. Paychecks. Promotions she could explain in one sentence at family gatherings. I chased structure. And structure doesn't look impressive until it starts paying you back. You know I make more than that in a year, right? She continued, tapping her phone like it might prove the point. Base salary alone. I know, I said calmly. She blinked. Oh, she said, surprised I'd agreed. Well, good. Then we're on the same page. She laughed again. That was when I realized something important. She thought this conversation was about comparison. It wasn't. The company had started quietly. A friend of a friend. A concept no one wanted to explain at parties. Too boring. Too technical. Too far from anything that looked glamorous. I'd joined early. Not because I believed in the pitch, but because I believed in the margins. When I'd first mentioned it to my family, my sister had waved it off. Why would you settle for scraps? She'd asked. 10% doesn't give you any control. She'd said it like control was the only thing worth having. She'd never understood yield. Back at the table, she leaned forward. Just promise me you're not expecting this to replace a real income, she said. Because I don't want to hear about it later. I folded my hands. I'm not expecting anything, I said. That made her smile widen. Good, she replied. Because expectations are where people get hurt. I nodded. She thought she was teaching me something. What she didn't know, what no one in that room knew, was that the 10% wasn't about growth. It was about distribution. And distribution doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly. A few weeks later, she invited me to lunch. Her treat. That alone should have told me she was feeling generous. So, she said, scrolling through her phone as we waited for our food. How's the little investment? It's steady, I replied. She snorted. Steady doesn't pay rent. I smiled into my water. Not immediately, I said. She laughed again. God, she loved laughing. When the check came, she paid without looking. I thanked her. She waved me off. Don't worry, she said. Once I get my bonus, I'll barely notice. I nodded. I noticed everything. That night, I opened my email. One subject line. Distribution notice, Q2. I didn't open it right away. I already knew. Because I'd read the operating agreement carefully. Every clause. Every condition. Every scenario no one else bothered to imagine. The email confirmed it. The first dividend. Modest on paper. Life-changing in context. And only the beginning. I didn't tell my sister. Not then. I didn't tell anyone. Because people who laugh early don't listen later. They only react. What I didn't realize then was how loud that reaction would be once the numbers stopped being theoretical. And how much it would cost her. Not financially, but emotionally, to understand that 10% of the right thing is more powerful than 50% of the wrong one. The truth was, the 10% was never small. It only sounded small to people who confused ownership with influence and income with stability. My sister was one of those people. She saw numbers the way children see fireworks, bright, immediate, gone the next morning. She chased the salary, the title, the applause that came attached to business cards and LinkedIn updates. I chased clauses. When I'd first been offered the stake, I'd asked only one question. How do profits move? The founder blinked. Most people asked about growth, about valuation, about exits. Almost no one asked about cash flow. That should have told me everything. It's a distribution-first model, he'd explained. Lean operations. Excess cash returns quarterly. I nodded slowly. Before reinvestment? I asked. Yes. Before executive bonuses? He smiled. Always. That was when I said yes. I turned down a salary that year. My sister called me insane. You can't pay bills with potential, she said. Take the paycheck. I didn't explain that I already had a paycheck. It just wasn't loud. The operating agreement became my bedtime reading. I highlighted the sections no one else wanted to look at. Preferred distributions. Waterfall structures. Priority payouts. The 10% wasn't diluted. It was protected. Locked ahead of salaries. Ahead of bonuses. Ahead of ego. By the time the company stabilized, the founder barely noticed me anymore. That was fine. He thought I was passive. I was positioned. The first dividend wasn't dramatic. 5 figures. After taxes, less. But it arrived without asking. No meetings. No approvals. No performance reviews. Just a deposit. I paid off my credit card. Then I waited. Because patience had already paid once. The second quarter came faster. Bigger. Cleaner. The founder started talking about expansion. My sister started talking about burnout. She called me one evening, voice tight. I'm thinking of switching companies, she said. The hours are insane. That's hard, I said honestly. At least your thing doesn't demand anything, she replied. You got lucky. I smiled into the phone. Yes, I said. Lucky. By the third quarter, the dividend crossed a line. It passed what my sister made in 3 months. I stared at the number for a long time. Not because I was shocked. Because I was vindicated. Still, I said nothing. Because money reveals itself best when it arrives unannounced. At the next family gathering, my sister was in rare form. New dress. New confidence. New job title she'd practiced saying out loud. She asked about my side thing, like she was checking on a pet. Still holding on to that 10%? She asked, smiling sweetly. For now, I replied. She laughed again. God, you're patient, she said. I'd go crazy without a real income. I nodded. I used to think that too. She didn't hear the past tense. That night, I opened my banking app. The 4th dividend had landed early. I did the math twice. Then a third time. Because numbers like that don't feel real until you see them aligned. I didn't sleep much. Not from excitement. From clarity. What my sister never understood was this. Salary feels safe because it's predictable. Ownership feels risky because it's quiet. But predictability isn't security. And silence isn't weakness. The 5th dividend arrived with a note. We're increasing distributions next quarter. I forwarded it to myself. Saved it. Didn't share it. What I didn't realize then was that my sister was about to laugh one last time. Right before the moment that changed how she looked at me forever. And this time, the laughter wouldn't echo. It would stop mid-breath. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. Plain. White. Unassuming. No logo. No branding. No attempt to impress. It sat in my mailbox like it didn't know what it was about to do. I carried it upstairs with my groceries, set it on the counter, and finished unpacking before I opened it. Milk in the fridge. Bread on the shelf. Routine first. I'd learned not to let money rush me. Inside was a single page. Dividend distribution, Q4. Below it, a number that made my breath slow. Not stop, just slow. The kind of number that didn't ask for celebration. It demanded recalibration. I read it twice. Then I turned the page over, half expecting fine print to jump out and correct it. Nothing did. The check followed. Thick paper. Crisp edges. Payable to me. An amount larger than my sister's annual salary. Net. I sat down. Not because my legs gave out. Because I wanted to remember how it felt to sit with certainty instead of anticipation. This wasn't a fluke. It was structure paying off. My phone buzzed while I was still at the table. A message from my sister. Drinks Friday? I need to vent. I stared at the screen. Then typed back. Sure. Just that. No emoji. No tone. Friday came quickly. We met at her usual place. Dim lights, loud confidence, expensive cocktails she pretended not to check the price of. She hugged me tightly. You look relaxed, she said. Must be nice not having deadlines. I smiled. It is. She launched into complaints before we even sat down. Her boss. Her team. The pressure to perform. They keep dangling bonuses, she said, rolling her eyes. But it's never enough for the hours. That's frustrating, I said. She sighed dramatically. At least you don't have to worry about that. You're insulated. She said it like insulation meant limitation. Halfway through her second drink, she leaned back and smiled. So, she said, still clinging to that 10%. I took a sip of water. Yes, I replied. She laughed. God, she said. I admire your loyalty. But I could never. I know, I said gently. That gave her pause. What do you mean? I shrugged. We want different things. She nodded, satisfied. Exactly. I want growth. I didn't correct her. When the check came, she reached for it automatically. I've got this, she said. You can Venmo me later. I watched her sign the receipt. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on the table between us. She frowned. What's that? I slid the check halfway out. Not dramatically. Not slowly. Just enough. Her eyes dropped. Then widened. Then narrowed. What is this? She asked, voice suddenly sharp. My dividend check, I said calmly. She laughed once. A reflex. That's not funny. It's not a joke, I replied. She picked it up. Read the number. Once. Then again. Her smile collapsed in stages. That's wrong, she said. That can't be right. I met her eyes. It's correct. Her hand tightened around the paper. That's more than I make, she said. Yes, I replied. Silence fell between us like a dropped glass. She looked around, embarrassed, like someone might be watching. From 10%, she whispered. Yes. Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You're lying, she said. I shook my head. You can call the company, I offered. Or the bank. She stared at me. Something unreadable flickered across her face. Why didn't you tell me? She demanded. I tilted my head. You laughed, I said. Every time. Her cheeks flushed. That was different, she snapped. How? I asked gently. She didn't answer. She leaned back slowly, eyes still fixed on the check. That's just 1 quarter? She asked. Yes. Her laugh came out wrong this time. Dry. Strained. Okay, she said. Okay. So what's the plan? You cash out. I smiled. There is no cash out, I said. That's the point. Her fingers tapped the table nervously. You got lucky, she said again. I let the word sit there. Then I shook my head. No, I said. I got patient. The waiter returned. She barely noticed. She waved him away, eyes still on the envelope. Can I see it again? She asked. I slid it back toward her. She read the number a third time. Like repetition might shrink it. That's not fair, she said finally. I didn't respond. Fairness had never been part of her vocabulary when she was ahead. She pushed the envelope back to me. Harder than necessary. Well, she said, forcing a smile. Congratulations. I guess your little thing worked out. I smiled back. It did. As we stood to leave, she paused. You think you're better than me now, she said quietly. I looked at her. No, I replied. I think we've been playing different games. She didn't walk me to the door. I didn't expect her to. That night, I deposited the check. Watched the confirmation appear. Then I closed the app and turned off my phone. Because what I didn't realize then was that this wasn't the end of her reaction. It was the beginning. And the next time we talked, the laughter would be gone completely, replaced by something far more dangerous. The laughter disappeared first. That was how I knew something had changed. Not overnight. Not dramatically. But gradually, like a sound fading in the background until you suddenly realize the room is quiet. My sister stopped joking about my little investment. Stopped teasing me about my free time. Stopped pretending it didn't bother her. Instead, she started asking questions. Careful ones. The first call came 3 days after drinks. So, she said, trying to sound casual, how exactly does that dividend thing work? I leaned back in my chair. It's automatic, I replied. Right, but is it guaranteed? As long as the company performs, I said. She hummed thoughtfully. Must be nice. I smiled. Yes, I said. It is. She called again the following week. This time, she didn't pretend. Do you think they'd offer more equity? She asked. If I invested? I closed my eyes briefly. They're not raising, I said. They don't need to. She scoffed. Everyone needs capital. Not when the model works, I replied. Silence. Then softer. You got in early. Yes, I said. At the next family gathering, she watched me. Not openly. Side glances. Pauses in conversation. That tight smile she used when she felt outpaced but refused to admit it. When someone asked what I was doing these days, she jumped in before I could answer. She's into investments now, she said brightly. Passive income. I smiled politely. She was rewriting the story. Later, she pulled me aside. You didn't have to embarrass me, she said under her breath. I blinked. I didn't. You pulled out that check, she hissed. In public. I met her eyes. You laughed at me in public for years, I said calmly. I never corrected you. Her face flushed. That's different, she snapped. I nodded slowly. Yes, I said. It is. The next dividend arrived. Larger. Predictable. Uneventful. I didn't tell her. She found out anyway. Our mother called me one afternoon. Your sister is stressed, she said carefully. I know, I replied. She feels like she missed something, Mom continued. I stared out the window. She did, I said. Mom sighed. Could you talk to her? I have been, I replied. She just didn't hear me. My sister stopped inviting me to vent. Started inviting me to consult. What would you do? She'd ask about job offers. About negotiations. About benefits. I answered honestly. Not generously. There's a difference. One evening, she came over unannounced. No makeup. No bravado. Just exhaustion. I can't do this forever, she said, collapsing onto my couch. The hours. The pressure. I handed her a glass of water. You don't have to, I said. She laughed bitterly. Easy for you to say. I sat across from her. It wasn't easy, I said. It was quiet. She looked at me then, really looked. You think I chose wrong, she said. I shook my head. I think you chose loud, I replied. And didn't leave yourself room. She rubbed her temples. Could you help me? She asked quietly. With what? I asked. She hesitated. Getting in, she said. On something like that. I considered her words. Then shook my head. No, I said. Her head snapped up. Why not? She demanded. Because, I said gently, you don't want ownership. You want relief. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. It's accurate, I replied. She stood abruptly. So that's it, she said. You just leave me behind? I stayed seated. I didn't leave, I said. I walked a different direction. The silence between us stretched. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Honest. A week later, she sent me an article. High earners report burnout at record levels. No message. Just the link. I didn't respond. What I didn't realize then was that the final shift wouldn't be about money at all. It would be about identity. And the moment she realized she could no longer define herself as the successful one, without comparing herself to me. The next dividend was scheduled for Monday. And by Sunday night, she was already unraveling. The dividend hit at 8:02 a.m. Right on schedule. I was already awake, coffee cooling on the counter, morning light stretching across the floor. I didn't rush to open the app. I didn't need to. Predictability had replaced suspense. That was the real victory. My phone buzzed 10 minutes later. My sister. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. You got it, didn't you? She asked. Not accusing. Not joking. Just flat. Yes, I said. She exhaled slowly. I can't wrap my head around it, she admitted. I work 60 hours a week. I'm exhausted. And you? She stopped herself. And for the first time, she didn't finish the sentence with laughter. We met later that afternoon. Not at a bar. Not somewhere loud. A quiet cafe near her office. Neutral ground. She arrived early. That was new. You look different, she said as I sat down. So do you, I replied. She smiled weakly. I didn't sleep. She didn't ease into it. I checked my pay stub this morning, she said. After taxes, bonuses spread out. Your dividend was bigger. I nodded. Yes. She looked down at her hands. I always thought I was ahead, she said quietly. I didn't interrupt. I thought security meant salary, she continued. And risk meant instability. She looked up. I was wrong. I took a sip of my coffee. Risk isn't instability, I said. It's exposure without structure. She frowned slightly. And salary? She asked. Is effort rented by the hour? I replied gently. Ownership is effort stored. She sat back. Let that land. You never rubbed it in, she said after a moment. I tilted my head. You rubbed it out, she corrected herself. You just waited. I smiled. Yes. She laughed then, but softly. Not dismissively. Not cruelly. I used to think patience was for people who couldn't win fast, she said. And now? I asked. Now I think it's for people who plan to win last. I held her gaze. That's exactly it. She sighed. I don't know who I am if I'm not the successful one, she admitted. That was the real confession. Not envy. Not regret. Fear. You don't have to be ahead of me, I said. You just have to stop racing me. She nodded slowly. I didn't even realize I was. I smiled. Most people don't. She didn't ask me to help her get in on anything again. That mattered. Instead, she asked a different question. How did you live while you waited? She asked. I thought about that. I built a life that didn't depend on applause, I said. So when the money came, it didn't change me. She swallowed. I built one that did, she said. The check cleared fully by evening. I moved part of it automatically. Investments, reserves, future quarters already accounted for. No celebration. No announcement. Just alignment. At the next family gathering, something felt different. No jokes. No comparisons. When someone asked how work was going, my sister answered honestly. It's a lot, she said. I'm rethinking things. No qualifiers. No superiority. Just truth. Later, as we helped clean up, she leaned over. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. I met her eyes. Thank you. No tension. No scorekeeping. That night, I sat on my couch, phone face down, dividend confirmation archived. I thought back to that first laugh. The way she'd said 10% like it was a punchline. And I realized something important. The money didn't silence her. Understanding did. 10% had never been small. It had been concentrated, protected, patient. And while she was climbing ladders someone else owned, I'd been sitting on a foundation no one could shake. People think revenge looks like humiliation. It doesn't. It looks like independence. It looks like calm. It looks like being impossible to dismiss, without ever needing to explain why. My sister doesn't laugh anymore when people talk about equity. She listens. That's the difference. They didn't know what I had already done. But by the time the dividend checks started arriving, there was nothing left to prove. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.